power is seductive, and in a cult setting, control is leverageable and easy. What makes a cult predatory, is it aims to negate where a person's agency is a self-inquiring determining and realizing of what they can come to conclusion within the inner conflicts of their lives, as a person, and the naive and vulnerable, have that ambiguity in their lives for that predation to exploit. And control is sometimes a convincing but in the exercising of it a seemingly depersonalizing and even invalidating gesture. I actually watched a film recently that demonstrated this in context, where a young woman, claiming to be a time traveler, offers all her followers an apple to eat, and in what she presented as a letting go exercise, compelled her followers to vomit up the currently digesting apple. The one protagonist is a spy filming a documentary and must keep his cover, and at first, refuses to regurgitate the apple. What the cult leader proceeds to do, is insinuate ambiguities of conflict in that person, somewhat abusively, creating the unease and the unreconciled thought and feeling that goes with it, in doing so, controlling the nature of the immediate context of feelings. In a gesture of consciousness, the letting go would be made crude point with, when the implied context of the stress is shown kindness. It's difficult to fight, and in that moment, he capitulates, and vomits up the apple. Putting yourself in the position of the same psychological confrontation in the cult setting, you might comprehend an emotional and almost self-consolidating means with which someone like that controls and brainwashes people. When you can comprehend what that feels like, to say, bring up a point of personal enclosure or conflict, when you are not really permitted the right to put that into context, in the gaslighting. And then imagine the contrast of what that must feel like when that nature is being presented by the cult leader, as familiar and empowerment by them. For cult members, that's liberating. And in that moment, the cult leader's sustaining of their messiah complex begins its consolidation. Especially in a fenced-off area, or worse yet, a basement. The isolation, accompanied by the lack of contrasting information between members, facilitates and finally completes the cult brainwashing mechanism. And so on and so forth. Fear is power here otherwise. To isolate someone from themselves and their reality is also how pimps behave. To not permit association with it. It is predatory, and is humanly opportune. Although not as contextual on the surface, the Church of Scientology employs this as well. They call it auditing, it's their interview process for new members, and the same reductionist opportunism and the blind spots of vulnerable and naive are the leverage they seek out when defining the nature of a thought. The way it works, is they have what they call an E-meter, it's basically the receiving and measuring apparatus you find in a polygraph test, a couple of metal rods that receive electrical signals upon touch, and a dial that moves back and forth. The measurement on that dial is presented as the measure of one's need for clearing, as they call it, and is associated suggestively. Control and isolation by people who believe they are mavericks, is a predatory cycle. You are the consequence of self-consciousness and subculture gaining form at the adjacent ability to be a part of your life. Control, is not the original behavior of your witnessing of this sociological phenomena. Not like that.